What is going on, guys? It's you, it's me, it's us. We're here for another live stream, doing this one on an off day because I was having some technical difficulties on Wednesday, so we're doing it today. And we are going to be going over all of the Foundations cards since the entire set has been out. Don't worry, I'm not going to go over every single common and uncommon, but I will point out the notable ones, and we will be going over a majority of the Res and Mythics. This is the biggest amount of standard cards that we have had introduced into standard in one set in Magic's history. Just an absurd amount of cards, 291 cards in the base set, and then an additional 200 or so unique cards in the Foundation starter kit, which all those cards should be available on Arena as far as I know, because they will be paper standard legal, and Arena's standard is true to paper legal. So we'll be getting all those cards. I'm not quite sure I can't find information just yet about how they're planning on introducing those, whether it's like an anthology kind of thing where you can just buy it all at once for a certain price, or whether we will have to craft those cards separately as you would for some other alternate cards from sets, but hopefully they will make it available as sort of like a starter collection on Arena as well, because I think that would be super beneficial to bringing new people to Arena also, because why not? You know, even if it costs the same amount as it does in paper, I think that would be an absolutely wonderful value for new players to get their hands on a lot of new cards. There's some really awesome stuff in this set. I just think it's going to completely blow standard out of the water from where it's at right now, because they definitely didn't pull any punches when it comes to making sure that there was enough fun stuff in here for old players like myself and some of you who have been on part of my channel for a while. There's plenty of goodies for us professional and semi-professional and just competitive people out there, not just for newbies. So with that, let's go ahead and get into this. And just one more quick thing before I get into all these cards. I will probably only be doing live streams moving until Foundations releases. Nothing I make in standard right now is going to matter when this set comes out at all, because this is going to shake standard up so much. So I'm not going to put out any more standard lists before Foundations releases, since it's only 12 days away. So you'll be seeing a little more live streams with me over the next coming weeks. We'll be doing some Arena Cube draft and some other fun stuff. But for now, let's go ahead and dig into these cards. All right, so Planeswalkers. We've got one of each kind. Sorry about that. One of each kind, or color rather. Ajani, Kaito, Liliana, Chandra, and Vivian. A couple of these are reprints. Two of them are new. So the reprints are Ajani, Color of the Pride. So we got one, a white and a white for a 4 loyalty, which is decent. And +1 puts a counter on a creature. -3 gives something flying and double strike until end of turn, which is actually a very powerful effect. And -8 create X 2/2 creature tokens, where X is your life total. Ultimate usually pretty hard to get to with this Ajani, since it takes 4 upticks and then a 5th turn to actually use the ultimate. But this Ajani was actually pretty good in standard when he was first printed. The ability to just give a creature flying and double strike can absolutely end a game very quickly, and I think he will definitely see play. You'll see that there are quite a few just incredible creature typal strategies that will be enabled by this set, so having something that can either make something evasive or just grow your team every turn is quite useful, and being a 5 loyalty after its activation for 3 mana is pretty sweet. Liliana Dreadhorde General is probably my favorite reprint. She's 6 mana, and I know a lot of you are probably thinking 6 mana for a Planeswalker, that's never going to see play. She's really good. I mean, the fact that, like, because you build your deck with this in mind, right? Like, if you're going to play a 6 mana Planeswalker, your deck is going to care about these abilities. It's not just going to be a card you slap into your deck, right? So you're going to build your deck in a way where you want to sacrifice stuff, or it benefits you in some way, right? Because either when she comes in, she makes a zombie, so she protects herself. So she's 6 mana, 7 loyalty, makes a 2/2, right? But her -4 is what's really sweet, because you make your opponent sacrifice 2 creatures, and then if you have a couple things you don't mind sacrificing, you get to draw cards, 2 cards, if you have 2 creatures to sacrifice, because it's not when 1 or more creatures die, it's whenever a creature dies. So it's really awesome. We've got Doubling Season come back, which I'll get to in a minute, and plus we already have Innkeeper's Talent, so we have multiple ways to build around her in Golgari, where she can just ultimate right away, and her ultimate is just back-breaking. It's like original or Liliana the Veil, but like twice as good. And then Vivian Reed, I love her just because she's a really sweet mid-range stompy planeswalker, just to kind of give green some card advantage, in the fact that you get to look at the top 4 cards of your library for her +1, reveal a creature or land, and put the rest into your hand, put it into your hand, put the rest in the bottom. Then she also has spot removal for enchantments, artifacts, creatures with flying. So hey, I mean, 5 mana, destroy Atraxa, get some creatures later. Seems pretty good. And then -8 is emblem, creatures you control get +2/+2, have vigilance, trample, and indestructible, which is pretty sweet. And then the new ones we've got, I had a long discussion with my friend about Kaito here. I think he's pretty good. I mean, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a loyalty counter on Kaito. So you're wanting to set this up in a tempo kind of deck where you are playing a lot of small evasive creatures. And he also makes one of your creatures evasive by making one creature you control not able to be blocked, and then you draw and discard a card, so you get the loot. He can protect himself by making a 2/1 blue ninja, which is pretty sweet. And then the -9 is whenever you get an emblem with whenever a player casts a spell, get a 2/1 ninja, which is pretty sweet because that counts you and your opponent. So every spell each of you cast, you're getting lots of ninjas. Synergizes pretty well with the Kaito from the last set, I think. Is he going to be like an absolute all-star? Probably not, but he'll be a fun include in those, enduring curiosity style decks. So. And then Chandra the Flameshaper is an interesting one. She's expensive. 7 mana for a 6 loyalty planeswalker, but her -4 is very strong. She doesn't have like a true ultimate where it's like a game-ending emblem or anything, but 8 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures or planeswalkers can just devastate an opponent's board. So, I mean, it's basically a board wipe, and then if she sticks around, she provides so much value. +2, add 3 red, exile the top 3 cards of your library, choose one, you may play that card this turn. So she draws you a card, gives you 3 additional mana to play with, or you can just create a token that's a copy of a creature you control, except it has haste and sack it at the end of the turn. So you can play a creature and then basically make a hasty token of it with her +1. So she comes down like, yeah, 7 mana is a lot for a board wipe, but the fact that she wipes the board and then keeps on providing tons of value, she might see play in some kind of like Grixis control list, or maybe even just like a blue-red control kind of deck. I think she's really cool. I don't know if she'll see a lot of standard play, or like she'll see play, but she's not going to be competitive, I don't think. But I like her a lot. So moving on to the next set of mythics, we have Valkyries Call, which I think this one's pretty interesting. It's a 5 mana enchantment, 3 and 2 white. Whenever a non-token, non-angel creature you control dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, the +1/+1 counter on it. It has flying and is an angel in addition to its other types. It's really, really cool. It's a lot of mana. It's a big 5 mana do nothing. But if you play this in a deck where you're kind of playing mid-range and you've got a good like 1, 2, 3, obviously you don't want to play this in an Angels deck, but you play this in like a nice like 1, 2, 3, 4 curve kind of just aggressive creature strategy, all of a sudden you can just slam the attack all button and your opponent has to make some serious decisions. Are they willing to grow your team and give it flying, or do they want to take the damage? So I can see this being a really nice top end to an aggressive deck to force opponents to make poor blocking choices. And Other than that, I think that's really the only home for it. I don't think this sees a home in any kind of like weird enters the battlefield kind of like deck or anything like that. I think it sees play in an aggressive deck, like non-angels, obviously, because it doesn't work on angels. But I think that's where it's going to be. So I like the card. I think it's really fun. We'll see where it goes. We've got Sphinx of Forgotten Lore, a 4-mana 3/3, 2/2 blue with flash and flying. We love flash cards. Whenever this creature attacks, target instant or sorcery in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost. This card's actually pretty sweet. It's not incredible because it has very poor stats, but the fact that you can flash it in at the end of your opponent's turn when they've tapped out, or you know, when they think that they don't have anything on your side of the board to worry about, and then all of a sudden you have a 3/3 flyer and you can start flinging back cool spells with them for cheaper than a flashback cost would normally be, is pretty sweet. So absolutely love this card. Nothing too complicated about it, but I like it a lot. Bloodthirsty Conqueror. I hate this card. I only hate it because it's just another infinite combo in standard. And honestly, like in my personal opinion, I think 2-card combos are unhealthy. I like infinite combos. I like combos that take like an engine to work. Cards that you just play them and deal some amount of damage and your opponent dies doesn't feel very fun. Will it be good? I don't know. It's a creature, so it dies to any kind of removal that kills it. So I don't think it's gonna like take over the meta or anything, but it's just gonna make for some feel bad games where you play enduring. What's the snake one? It's the black enduring creature that says whenever your opponent, whenever you gain life, your opponent loses that much life. So this makes an infinite combo with that, because whenever you gain life, your opponent loses that much life. Then whenever your opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So you gain, you lose, you gain, you lose, you gain, you lose. Enduring tenacity. Thank you, Martin, and welcome. Yeah. So, and then there's I don't know if it's in the main set or the starter set, but there's actually a 3-drop that does it too, that enables the combo. It's a vampire from a long time ago. That does the same thing as this card. So we'll basically have quite a consistent way to trigger this combo without actually having to have the original enchantments that started it. So not veto, it's a 3-mana vampire. It's just like an uncommon that says whenever your opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Or it might even be, I think it's whenever your opponent loses life, you gain 1 life. But it's the same problem, is your opponent loses any amount of life and you gain 1 life. So enduring tenacity deals 1 damage, you gain 1 life. It works out the same way. It's not a symmetrical effect like Bloodthirsty Conqueror is, where it's you know, however much they lose you gain, but it still ends up being infinite. Anyway, moving on, we have Twinflame Tyrant. I don't know how I feel about this. I like my 5-mana dragons to have haste. This one does not have haste, but if a source you control will deal damage to an opponent, or a permanent they control deals double that damage instead. So it's really good if you already have a board full of stuff. It makes your board terrifying to block against. I don't know if this would see play in an actual dragon like dedicated deck. Definitely could. You know, being able to turn oh, actually, you know, I didn't think about that. Sarkhan makes this a 4-mana card, so you play Sarkhan on 3, play this on 4, turn Sarkhan into this, and now your stuff deals double damage. So that's fun. So actually, yeah, this might see play in a dragon deck, which there's another card a little further down that I think is going to make dragon decks fun as well. So it's a cool card. I don't think it's going to blow anything out of the water, but it's going to definitely upset some people. We've got Quill Greatworm, which I love this card. 6 mana 7/7 with trample, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage during your turn, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. You may cast this card from your graveyard by removing 6 counters from among creatures you control in addition to paying its other cost. It's cool because it says counters. It doesn't have to be +1/+1 counters. It can be all kinds of counters. It can be -1/-1 counters. It could be flying counters or lifelink counters or lots of other different kinds of counters. Stun counters. That's a fun one, considering that we have a blue-green frog that puts 3 stun counters on something and draws you 2 cards. You can remove the stun counters from your creatures and boom. Cast your Greatworm from the graveyard. Seems pretty sweet to me. All right, and then the last 3 mythics from the monocolored side of things. We have Herald of Eternal Dawn. Hey, thanks, Justin. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's. I'm sorry, I have not been as active the last 2 weeks. I had MagicCon Las Vegas this past weekend, and then I came home and was having some difficulties with my computer when I got back, and just lots and lots of catching up to do after being gone for 5 days. So I've been a little bit busy, but we're back to streaming, as you can see, and I will be back to making I have so many ideas. You have no idea how excited I am for this set. So I have 1,000,001 ideas, probably nothing you're going to see from any of the other content creators. I can almost guarantee it, because most of my favorite stuff is absolute jank, but I'm telling you, it's going to be good. So Herald of Eternal Dawn, 7 mana, 6/6 with Flash. I like Flash. Flying, you can't lose the game, your opponents can't win the game. So it's basically Platinum Angel, but in white, and 1 power and toughness less. And you can flash it in. That seems pretty sweet to me, because if you're in a late game against an opponent and they've just got lethal somehow, and you have enough mana to flash this in, they go swinging out because they've got lethal, and you're just like, bam, slam this down. They can't win the game, and then maybe you can somehow turn it around from there. So I think this is a really sweet top end for like a ramp deck, to save yourself against aggro, maybe. Like if you're ramping up and you're like, oh man, I have a 7-drop, but they've got like 10 creatures on the board already. How am I supposed to stop them with my 1 7-drop? Well, here you go. So then we have Omniscience, which, if you've been playing this game for any length of time, you are very familiar with Omniscience. Sorry, allergies. It's not going to be a huge problem in Standard, I don't think. You're definitely going to have Squirming Emergence decks and Abuelo decks and things like that that reanimate this out of the graveyard for really, really cheap and then dump their entire hand on the board. But it's not going to be any worse than they already are, to be honest. Like, I talked with a friend of mine for a while about it, and it's not going to be any worse than the one with the multiverse or just reanimating Atraxa or any of that. Those decks are already decent, but they're also very easy to hate on. So, especially with Ghost Vacuum from the last set, fantastic sideboard card against this nonsense. So excited to see Omniscience. It'll be fun. It'll be a good way to cheese out some games, but it's not going to like break Standard or anything. Now, a card I am excited about is Rise of the Dark Realms. This is such an incredible card for like the decks that were doing like mill and get lands, like the Lumra, Bellow of the Woods, Analyst style decks. Like, I can see Jund Analyst running this and just having like some really nice reanimation targets in there to go with it, and even being able to potentially throw in maybe some milling for your opponent in there so that you can get some of their stuff back. I just love this card. It's not going to break Standard, but I am 100% going to build a deck around just blowing people out of the water with this card, because for 9 mana, being able to get all the creatures from everyone's graveyard onto the battlefield is pretty sweet. We've got Rite of the Dragon Caller, which this is a fantastic control finisher. This reminds me a lot of... there was an enchantment in Kaladesh. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a 6-mana enchantment that, like, it was a really good finisher for, like, the Izzet control decks. This is very similar to that. It basically makes it every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you get a 5/5. It's really nice. It's great control finisher. I could see Jeskai Control having a blast with this. Jeskai Control is getting quite a few fun tools in this set, and so this would be a great just finisher. Well, maybe not. We do have a lot of enchantment removal in Standard right now, so it's possible this doesn't work out too well, but I still think it's a good finisher for a deck like that. Doubling Season. Oh my gosh. Same problem. There's a lot of enchantment removal in Standard right now, but this is the most fun card. I love this with Planeswalkers. I will 100% be building a Super Friends list with Doubling Season. It's fun with tokens. It's fun with all kinds of stuff. This is just such an awesome, fun card. I'm so excited to have a reprint of this for Commander players, for Brawl, just the whole works. Like, there's so many reasons I'm excited for this reprint, but I'll definitely be playing it in Standard. All right, we've got Sky Knight Squire, which is a 2-mana Cat Scout. Cat being one of my favorite creature types that they're doubling down on in this set. I will be building Cat Tribal. Keep your eyes out for it. It's coming. 2 mana, 1/1. Whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Not whenever one or more, whenever another creature enters. As long as this creature has 3 or more +1/+1 counters, it has flying and is in a knight in addition to its other types. This card is awesome. It's probably not something you're playing on 2 necessarily, unless you're confident your opponent can't just, like, you know, ping it out of the way. But it's really good with all the ways that you can make multiple tokens in a turn, especially in Cat Tribal. And I think it'll be a fun card. Dre Catcher, 2 mana 1/3 with Vigilance and Prowess. Very sweet stats there. And then whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many incubation counters on it. If you remove 3 incubation counters from this creature, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. It's not insanely powerful, but the prowess and the vigilance make this card an absolutely wonderful 2-drop for any kind of spell slinging deck. And I am interested to see if this actually starts to make some waves in Standard. I think it might. Abyssal Harvester, 3 mana 3/2, tap, exile target creature card from a graveyard that was put there this turn, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a nightmare, and then exile all other nightmare creature tokens you control. This card is fun. I can absolutely, like, Demons is pretty popular right now. This would be a fantastic card to play in any kind of demon deck, right? And then if your opponent's playing, like, Reanimation or Mill or anything like that, this doesn't have to be done as a sorcery. So your opponent's like, oh, I'm going to discard my Atraxa so I can reanimate it. Cool, I'm going to exile your Atraxa, get a copy of it. Have fun. So I see graveyard decks struggling a little bit in this set because there's just some really sweet hate for it. Dracos Seth, Maw of Flames. I love this card. I love this card with Sarkhan. I love this card with anything that gives it haste, because there are lots and lots and lots of those cards in Standard. It's such a house. If you can give this haste, even if you can't give it haste, as long as it survives the turn, but if you can give this haste, which it's not hard, you got Enduring Courage, you have Sarkhan, which kind of gives it haste because Sarkhan becomes a copy of Dracos Seth, and then can attack and get the trigger, or any number. There's a bunch of cards in Standard that would give this haste. It's such a powerful effect. 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. So you either just clear the board, smack them in the face for 7, or you hit them in the face for 11 and kill 2 small things, or whatever. You can do it however you want. It's just so much value in being able to remove multiple targets from the battlefield, or just deal a ton of damage in one turn. I love this card. I think it's awesome, and I will absolutely be making a dragon deck with this, and probably, like, imagine following that up with following Twinflame Tyrant up with that. Like, my goodness. We now have Loot Exuberant Explorer, which everyone seems really excited about this version of Loot, and I am also quite excited about it. You get to play an additional land on each of your turns, so very Oracle of Moldiah feeling, but for 1 less mana and better stats, and then you can pay 6 mana to look at the top 6 cards of your library, reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them, and put it onto the battlefield. It's a very strong effect, especially in if you're gonna play like Mono Green or Golgari or Simic Ramp. There's a very good reason to be playing Simic Ramp in this set. It's really sweet. It's a nice ability. It's not like super easy to remove it because it does die to cut down, but most other burn-based removal spells, things like that, aren't going to deal with it. So I mean, you still just got like your black-based removal that's going to take care of it. But I think it's a really cool card. Just the fact that when you play him, you get to play the land before they do anything about it. Like, because you get priority back for actions like that before they can remove it. So, once it resolves, you can just play the land. So it's good. Authority of the Councils. I'm so happy this card is coming back to Standard. It's amazing. It's gotta be the best sideboard card in this whole set. It's gonna crush mono red. Like, you're gonna, like, if mono red is ever a problem, 4 of these in the sideboard, easy. You gain life whenever they play something. Their stuff comes in tapped, so no hasty stuff. It shuts down Forge permanently, so this is a great answer if you're dealing with a deck that's playing Urabrask's Forge. This just completely shuts it off. It doesn't even work anymore. And you gain life, so like, it's better than removing it because they're still getting the creatures, but you're gaining the life out from it. So this card's awesome. It's going to be a great sideboard card. It may even see play in main boards of some kind of life gain strategy where you just want to be gaining as much life per turn as possible for triggers and things like that. We'll have to see. We've got Kiora, the Rising Tide, 3 mana, 3/2. When she enters, draw 2 and discard 2. And then she has Threshold. Whenever she attacks, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you get Scion of the Deep, a legendary 8/8 blue octopus creature token. It's pretty sweet. She's going to be really good for enabling, like, so Sultai Reanimator. This is going to be a great card for that. She'll be an alternative win condition for a deck like that, and I think that she's really awesome. I don't think, again, this isn't going to be meta breaking or anything, but she's going to be a really cool card to play with in Standard. I'm excited. We have Runescarred Demon, which I love. It's basically, you know, just a demonic tutor on a stick, and if you can cheat this into play somehow, it's awesome. 6/6 flyer, gets you your best card out of your deck that you need for the moment. It's pretty sweet. It's, you know, it's not anything crazy, but if you can cheat this into play, it's awesome. Flamewake Phoenix. I love this card. It was very good when it was in Standard originally, and it'll be good in Standard now. Of course, obviously, we don't want Red to have more fun things to play with, but this isn't really for that kind of Red deck. Okay, I'm lying. It is for that kind of Red deck, because I forgot Mono Red can just make 4 and 10 power creatures like no one cares. So it's a 3 mana 2/2 flying haste. It attacks every combat if able. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you can pay 1 red mana to return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's a recurring threat every single turn as long as you can keep something big enough on the battlefield. So it's a very sweet Phoenix. I like it. And it'll probably see play in more of like a Gruul stompy list than it will in Mono Red, to be honest. Sylvan Scavenging. I actually really like this enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, or create a 3/3 Raccoon if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. It's not like, wow, best card in the whole world, but it's nice value. At the very least, it's putting a counter on something you control, and then if you grow something big enough or you play a big enough creature, you get a free 3/3 every turn, which is pretty sweet. So I like this card a lot. This card has some implications. Return all creature cards with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is going to be nuts. You're going to see Boros decks with this, playing Enduring Courage, playing, you know, Warleader's Call, and just a bunch of like really solid 2 mana or less creatures. It's the only things bigger than that are going to be this card, Enduring Courage, and Warleader's Call. And I really think Sunfall is going to fall a little bit out of favor, just a little bit, because we're getting Day of Judgment in this set. And having a board wipe on 4 is so much better than having a board wipe on 5. So people who were running 4 Sunfall are probably going to run 2 Day of Judgment, 2 Sunfall, or 3 Day of Judgment, 1 Sunfall, because having that 4 mana board wipe is so much better than having a 5 mana one, even if the 5 mana one exiles. So you're not going to have all your stuff getting exiled as often, I don't think. And we're also getting Fumigate, which is another 5 mana board wipe that's really, really good for control because it gains you a bunch of life. So we'll have to see. I think if Sunfall starts to fall out of favor a little bit, this card's going to be nuts. There's so much potential for this. There's combo potentials. If you can get, you know, there's a lot of, you know, 1 and 2 mana creatures that combo really well together that do a lot of stuff. So maybe even there could be some crazy combo deck that comes out of this, but I'm really excited about this card. Extravagant replication, 6 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that is a copy of another target non-land permanent you control. This could be another pretty sweet control finisher. If you can get like a sweet artifact or another enchantment that you really want to, you can kind of play this alongside a lot of other really nice enchantment or artifact win conditions and just double up on them. So that way you're making sure if they manage to remove one, you still have plenty more. And it just makes it more redundant and easier for you to win through removal spells. I don't know if it's going to see a ton of play, but I think it's a really cool concept for a card. So this card, do we need a sometimes 1 mana board wipe? Really? It's pretty hard to fulfill this condition unless you are also participating in the creature count. So it's not going to be in a pure control deck. But in a sacrifice deck that's just making a bunch of tokens and like playing a bunch of stuff that has death triggers and things like that, this card's going to be bonkers. Like, you just play this in a deck that you don't care about your stuff dying. 1 mana to wipe your opponent's board and trigger a whole bunch of fun stuff for you. This card's ridiculous. Like, ridiculous. This is a really interesting card, and I think it's gonna make some really sweet like Rakdos sacrifice lists that are already kind of like seeing some play. See even more play. Imagine if Blood Artist were in standard. That'd be really crazy. But we do have some cards like that in like Massacre Worm is coming back, which that's part of the starter set. I'll show you later. And we've already got Vein Ripper, which is similar, so whenever creatures die, your opponents take a bunch of damage. It's a really cool card, and I think it's going to have some interesting implications for standard. Brass's Bounty, 6 mana, make a bunch of treasures. You get a treasure token for each land you control. I don't know how good this is, but it could potentially enable some kind of crazy combo. I have not dug deep enough into the standard card pool to see what combo that would be, though. So we'll have to look. Keep our eyes out for it. Genesis Wave. This is a card I'm real excited about. I love Genesis Wave. I want to ramp, get as much mana as I can, and I want to reveal a whole bunch of cards off top of my library and make my opponent cry when I play a bunch of free stuff. So I love this card. This card's going to be an absolutely fun build around, and I guarantee you there will be a genuinely competitive version of this deck. Genesis Wave has always found favor when it's been in standard. It's not been in standard a whole lot of times, but when it was, there's always been at least one good Genesis Wave deck, because it's just so much, it's so easy to ramp in the standard. There's so much good ramp, and the value on this, like if you can pay 4 to 5 mana for this consistently, it's really good, because you just get a bunch of free stuff. It's like Genesis Ultimatum. Genesis Ultimatum is 7 mana. You get to look at the top 5. This would be 8 mana to look at the top 5. But it's easier to cast, because in green you're already playing a ton of green for the ramp anyway. So I love this card. I'm excited about it. Celestial Armor. This card is nuts. 3 mana flash. When this equipment enters, attach it to target creature you control. The creature gains hexproof and indestructible till end of turn. Then it also gains +2/+0 in flying. This has got to be one of my favorite save a creature cards ever printed. I love this card. I think it's fantastic. I think it's going to make equipment decks fun. We've already got a lot of really fun equipment stuff from Brothers War and All will be one and stuff like that. So this card is going to be really good. It's going to be fantastic at saving creatures, and there's a lot of value. Like, I'm going to make my creature bigger and better and give it flying and save it. Like, I love it. Curator of Destinies, 6 mana, 5/5. Cannot be countered. When it enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library, separate them into a face-down pile and a face-up pile. An opponent chooses one of those piles and put that pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So sort of like a fact or fiction Sphinx. I like it. We got High Society Hunter, 5 mana, 5/3, Vampire Noble. When it attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And then whenever another non-token creature dies, draw a card. That seems pretty sweet to me. I mean, she dies the lightning strike, but I like that ability a lot. I can't believe we're getting Krenko back. Krenko? Like, man, I don't think Goblin Chieftain is in this set, but if it was, we would be in trouble. I don't think it is. We do still have a lot of give creatures haste cards, but they all cost 4 mana approximately. In most cases, they cost 5 mana. Or 4 mana. So it's not like, you know, you're just curving 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop Krenko and just ruining somebody's life. But goblins will be good. I'm telling you right now, you will see goblins decks in this standard because we've already got a decent goblin lord. We've got some good goblins being printed in this set. We already had Squee and a few other good 3-drop goblins that, and we're getting Dragon Fodder back, which is a 2 mana make 2 goblins, and then we have Gleeful Demolition, which makes 3 goblins. So goblins will be good again. I think it's not going to be. I don't think goblins will be the best typal deck that comes out of this set, but it's going to be up there. Preposterous Proportions. I love the art on this card so much. Giant squirrels ransacking a town. 7 mana, creatures you control get +10/+10 and vigilance till end of turn. It drives me nuts that there's no trample involved. But, I mean, those are definitely those squirrels are trampling that village. Like, come on. Flavor fail. Cool card, though. We're getting Gata back, guys. Gata is coming back to standard. I was very sad when Gata rotated because I love angel decks. I think they're very fun. And I'm really excited they're bringing her back because she's such a great card. She absolutely has to be one of the best typal support cards that has ever been printed for a creature type. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say. She's awesome. I'm really excited to have her back. And if you're coming back to standard and you never played with Gata, you'll be excited to play with her too. High Fae Trickster, 4 mana, 4/2 flash flying. You may cast spells as though they had flash. I like that. We already kind of have a card like that, but this one is all spells, not just non-creature spells. So it might actually see some play. Being able to cast, you know, creatures, planeswalkers, whatever, with flash seems pretty awesome. Tiny Bones, Bauble Burglar, 2 mana, 1/3. Whenever opponent discards a card, exile it from their graveyard with a stash counter on it. During your turn, you may play cards you don't own with stash counters on them from exile, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. 4 mana, each opponent discards a card. This is going to make those mono black discard card decks pretty happy. This is a pretty sweet effect for that, so is it good enough to break the deck and make it tier? I don't think so, but it's a very good effect for those decks, so watch out for this. Kellen Planar Trailblazer. We got a 1 mana 2/1 legendary human fairy scout because he's always got to have all those fun creature types. 2 mana, if it is a scout, it becomes a human fairy detective and gains whenever it deals combat damage to a player. Exile the top card of your library and you can play it this turn. And then 3 mana, if it's a detective, it becomes a 3/2 human fairy rogue and gains double strike. I'm not really that stoked about this card. I think it's okay. It's interesting, but I don't see this being like crazy for red decks. So another Kellen that's not like really that exciting. So they really need to make like one Kellen that's just really good, you know, like they're trying to push this character so much. I really think they need to work harder on making an actually good Kellen card so that people will like because I think he's a cool character, but all his cards have just been really lackluster. So we'll have to see. Spinner of Souls, 3 mana, 4/3 reach. I like well-statted cards, and this is one of them. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card in your hand, and the rest on the bottom in a random order. So, nice little way to get some card advantage. Nothing too crazy. We got Exemplar of Light. 4 mana, 3/3 flying. Whenever you gain life, put a counter on this creature. Whenever you put one or more counters on this creature, put a draw card, and this ability only triggers once each turn. I like this card a lot, actually, especially because we have quite a few cards in green that can be played before this card that allow you to put a counter on it the turn it comes into play. Yeah, I agree. I think this card is really good. Especially in like I think green white angels is going to be very good, just because of some of the cards you get in green that can actually help with angels. But this card is very strong, I think, especially because you're already going to be playing something like Authority of the Councils or the Case that gains life whenever a creature comes into play. So it's immediately going to become a 4/4. So I mean, let's say you have the Case on the field, right? It's a 1 mana card. It's already going to gain you life when you play other creatures. So it's already been proven to be a good card. You play this, you gain the life as long as they don't have removal for it immediately. You get a counter on it, and you draw a card. So you get a 4/4, draw a card for 4 mana. And then it has more value as time goes on. That's really sweet. I love this card. I think it's a really good angel. I'm excited to play with it. Lunar Insight, 3 mana, draw a card for each different mana value among non-land permanents you control. I don't know how I feel about this, because you need to have a lot of permanent types, and in my opinion, or it's mana values. Okay, so for each different mana value, right? So where I think this shines the best is in like an is it spell like a prowess deck, you know, where you've got a 1-drop, a 2-drop, a 3-drop, and then you draw a couple of cards with this for 3 mana. I think if you're drawing anything less than 3, though, the card's just not good, you know, because it's basically just divination at that point. So you really need to be able to consistently have 3 mana values among your permanents when you play this. How easily can you do that? Maybe it sees play in like... I could see it seeing play maybe in a synthesizer deck, where you're playing a lot of artifacts that your opponent has a hard time interacting with, and so maybe you've got several mana values among the artifacts you have in play, and so this can draw you 4 or 5 cards in a turn. If you can have a situation like that, it's very good. So I think we'll just have to wait to see what people come up with and what I can come up with. But I'm not super sold on this card just yet, so we'll have to see. Painful Quandary. We already have this card in standard. We're getting it back in this one. They're just putting it in this set so it'll be legal for longer. 5 mana. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player loses 5 life unless they discard a card. Electro Duplicate. I like this card. We got 3 mana. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it has haste, and then you can flash it back for 4 mana. So if they happen to remove the creature that you were going to play this on, you can still flash it back later, so it's not a complete waste. Gata Primal Hunger. This card is going to be so good. This card was amazing when it was in standard. It's so easy to play this card for 2 mana. It's absurd. This will be an absolute house in mono green Stompy. It's going to be good in Gruul, where you can play Terror of the Peaks on turn 4 and then play this immediately afterwards. It's way better than the Gata we have in standard right now, but it does synergize well with that Gata. But yeah, I love this card. This card's really good. It's also going to be good in just dinosaurs. Like, because you have the 5 mana dinosaur that gives everything haste. For 5 mana, you are literally... Because you get a 5/3, so 5 power, and then a 3/3. So you immediately reduce the cost by 8. So it's already a 4 mana 12/12. Assuming you have nothing else on the board. So, very good. Arabo, First Fang. This is another reason I'm really excited about Cat Tribal. This is not even the best Cat Tribal card that we're going to get, but it's very good. Other cats you control get +1/+1. It's a 3 mana 2/2, and whenever it or another non-token cat you control enters, you get a +1/+1, or sorry, a 1/1 white cat creature token. I know I'm going to get blown out by board wipes. I don't care. I really don't. I really think destruction-based board wipes are going to become way more popular, and we have several good ways to make all our stuff indestructible, and I will find a way Where there's a will, there's a way. And this deck will be incredible against aggro decks. Like, because of a card that I will talk about later, called Regal Caracal, which is an amazing cat lord. So we'll get to that in a little while. Homonculus Horde, 4 mana 2/2. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a token that's a copy of this creature. Could definitely be a fun card. I don't know. I don't think it's good, but it's cool. You just want to make a bunch of homunculuses. So, yeah. Zul Escher, Lich Lord, 2 mana 2/2 ward, pay 2 life. You may cast target zombie creature card from your graveyard this turn. I love this card. I want to see zombies succeed in standard. I love zombies. I don't know if we have enough zombies for it to work yet, but this is a pretty sweet card. And who knows what we're going to get in the upcoming sets moving forward. So it might not be crazy right now, but it could be very good in the future set. We'll have to see. Slagstorm. Love this card. Super excited to have Slagstorm back in standard. Brotherhood's End is already very good, but this is going to be better for a more aggressive style deck, like a Gruul Stompy list where you're playing overstatted, red-green creatures that have 4 toughness and 5 toughness for 3 and 4 mana, and you want to have a way to either close out the game or blow up your opponent's board. This does both. So being able to deal the 3 damage to each player when you don't need the board wipe aspect of it is very good, and this card was incredibly popular when it was at the standard, and it will be popular again now. Scavenging Ooze. This card's just so good. This card is so good. This has got to be one of, mono green is going to be so happy they have this back, because it's exile any card from a graveyard. If it was a creature, you get a +1/+1 counter on it and you gain a life. It's so good against Reanimator. It's just a naturally good card against Reanimator, and you can exile your own stuff if they're killing your stuff. You just exile your own creatures from your graveyard, grow this, gain life. It's awesome. We got Crystal Barricade, 2 mana 0/4 defender. You have hexproof and prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to other creatures you control. Great sideboard card against discard decks. Great sideboard card against burn decks. Not much more to say about it than that. Archmage of Runes, 5 mana 3/6. Instants and sorceries cost 1 less, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. I like this card because it curves right after Illuge. So if you're playing a mono blue Spellslinger list, you can play this and right after Illuge, and probably because of the 1 reduction from this and the 2 reduction you would have from Illuge, cast a 3 mana instant or sorcery for absolutely free and draw a card. So that means you can play a counter spell. So if you play this and your opponent's remove it, you can just be 3 steps ahead, counter your thing, draw a card. It's sick. So I think this card will only be good specifically with Illuge, where it will be very easy to have greatly cost reduced instants and sorceries. But the fact that this will let you refill your hand every time you cast something is amazing. So we'll have to see whether it's good enough to make the cut in a deck like that, but it's very good to follow it up. So Phyrexian Arena, we already have that in standard. It's going to be around longer. Yay. Atali Primal Storm. This is the 6 mana version of everybody's favorite dinosaur. You know what? It's not everybody's favorite dinosaur. We all know that. It's almost as aggravating, but it has to attack to get its trigger, so it's much worse. I don't see this card seeing play. This card was a bulk rare at best when it was in standard. It's not horrible if you can give it haste, but the other Atali's so much better at 1 mana more. It's almost laughable to conceive playing this card instead of the other Atali. The other Atali is just so much better. So it's cool to have it back in standard, but I don't see it playing over the other Atali or many other 6-drops for that matter. We got Mossor Hydra, 2 and a green for a 0/0 elemental Hydra with trample. It enters with 1 +1/+1 counter on it, and it has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double the number of +1/+1 counters on this creature. This is a really fun card. It's not incredible, but it's really, really fun. There's a lot of nice double up, add an additional counter stuff, and this card can get bonkers really quick with Fable passages and you know, just multiple land drop lands, things like that. Being able to play additional lands on the turn, stuff like that. This card can get out of hand real fast. So very cool card. Excited to see it. Definitely going to try to build something around it. There it is. Day of Judgment. Destroy all creatures. No drawbacks, no extra stuff. 4 mana. All your stuff dies. Am I excited to see a 4 mana board wipe in Standard? Only because I hope it will make Sunfall less popular. Because it is significantly better to be able to board wipe on 4 than 5. I guarantee you this will see more play than Sunfall. Because decks that want to play Sunfall really care about keeping the board clear. I definitely think it'll see play alongside Sunfall. And of course, there's always going to be that one blue-white control deck that plays 4 of this and 4 Sunfall, and they're all going to make us sad, but that's just the news. So, still, if this gets played before Sunfall, at least your stuff goes to the graveyard and you have some opportunities to manipulate things with that. Whereas Sunfall is just such a back-breaking card, because if you're playing anything that cares about your graveyard, it just doesn't matter. So, card's great. It's going to see a lot of play. Get used to it. Time stop. End the turn. 6 mana. Instant. Not sure why. It's kind of just a really expensive counter spell. When your opponent plays something really, really good, or if they start comboing off or something. So, I mean, it's an okay sideboard card. If your opponent's trying to combo, and, you know, if they're going to waste a whole bunch of cards comboing and then you just end the turn before they can do anything, it's pretty sweet. So, maybe a cool sideboard card against the Otter Storm deck, because you can make them burn through all their cards and draw all the stuff and play everything, make a billion otters, and then you can time stop and make them sacrifice everything, and you get an extra turn to deal with it. 9 lives familiar, 1 a black and a black for a cat. It enters with 8 revival counters on it, and when it dies, if it had a revival counter on it, return it to the battlefield with 1 fewer revival counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. I don't know why this, like, what the, I don't, like, maybe if there's like some death, you know, whenever a creature dies, do X thing, or like Bartolome, you can sacrifice this just like 8 times in a row. There's gonna be some interesting combo with this, I'm guaranteeing it. I'm just not quite sure, but I like this card. I think it's got a lot of potential. There's going to be some kind of sacrifice combo with this. I guarantee it. I like it. Sear Slicer Goblin. 2/1 for 2. Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. It's a very good goblin. Going to see play. Elvish Dark Druid. I cannot believe this card is being reprinted. I can't. We are getting so many elf lords in this set. They are pushing elves super hardcore in this set because elves are super iconic in Magic. So, you know, it makes sense. But I mean, we're getting this. We're getting Imperious Perfect. There's another 4 mana that gives all elves +1/+1. This particular one, though, is just so good. Like, if he lives, the amount of mana generation that this creature can provide is absurd. And anyone who's played Pioneer or Historic and seen a Pioneer or Historic Elves deck go off knows that this card right here is bonkers. So we've got a lot of really sweet elves already in Standard, and I think Elves is going to be a serious contender. I can almost guarantee you there's going to be some kind of elf ball deck that makes it tier 1 or tier 2 after the set releases. And that is all the rares and the monocolors. So here I'm only going to go over cards that I think are particularly exciting in the commons and uncommons, because this is already taking a long time. And I appreciate all of you who are sitting here through me talking about all these cards, especially when some of you have probably already looked at a lot of this stuff. But I like giving my own insight. I like telling you what I think about the cards and what I'm excited for, the kinds of decks I think they're going to enable, stuff like that. So we'll just kind of bear with me while I kind of dig through this. Witch Soldier. Resolute Reinforcements? Because that's already in standard. Dauntless. Is it on the screen? Dauntless Veteran? Okay, let me get to that. So, Brineborn Cutthroat's actually pretty sweet. I don't think it's going to be crazy, but Merfolk are already kind of like potentially. Yeah, I'll talk about it in a second. I think the card's actually pretty sweet. So, it's not going to be insane or anything, but it's a cool card. Infernal Vessel is pretty interesting. When this creature dies, if it wasn't a demon, return it to the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it. It's a demon addition to its other types. That's a pretty sweet little like sacrifice. Or this is the kind of card you play in one of those decks where you want to sacrifice stuff, like the Liliana Dreadhorde General, or the one where for 1 mana sacrifice, each player sacrifices 13 creatures. So all your stuff does something like this, where it's just like one-sided basically, or you're actually upgrading your creatures. So this is a perfect card for a deck like that. Brazen the Scourge is a gremlin with 3/3 haste. It could be interesting because we've got that 4 mana give gremlins +1/+1 menace and haste on a turn, so maybe there's like a gremlin deck. We'll see. Let's see. Resolute Reinforcements we already know is good, but it's also already in standard. So Bolt Wave is really good. Like, this is gonna make burn, mono red burn, really good. So nothing too much to say other than the fact that you're gonna hate this card. There's gonna be burn decks and they're gonna be good. Quake Strider Ceratops. It's 12/8 for 6 mana. This is ridiculous. Like, it's not insane because it doesn't have any keywords, but I mean, following up a Terror of the Peaks with this is pretty sweet, I guess. So limited, it's going to be a wall. Thoughtless Veteran, we've got a 3 mana 2/2. Whenever this creature attacks, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. It's not terrible, but it is a 2/2 for 3, which makes it a little bit worse. But it's not bad. I don't think. My problem is that there are just better 3 mana. You've got Adaptive Automaton, which is an artifact, 3 mana 2/2 that you choose a creature type, and it just gives those creatures +1/+1 permanently without the attack trigger. So you can get it right away. So there are better options than this, but it's going to be a very good draft card for sure. Spectral Sailor, just another nice 1 mana 1/1 flyer that has some potential upside later in the game because you can draw cards with it. So it'll see some play in the tempo flying decks. Frenzy Goblin's really good. Whenever this creature attacks, you can pay a red. Target creature can't block this turn. That's really solid. That's going to really make Goblin decks really awesome. I like Garruk's Uprising a lot. It provides card draw every time you play something big, and it gives all your stuff trample. So hey, that's really awesome. Jouster is pretty sweet, but we already have Elspeth Smite. But the fact that you gain some life from it's pretty cool. Revenge of the Rats, create a tapped 1/1 black creature, black rat creature token for each creature card in your graveyard, and it has flashback force. This could be really interesting too, in like a Rakdos token sacrifice kind of list. Really excited to have Reclamation Sage back in standard. Again, elves are going to be absolutely insane. Diregraph Ghoul is very good if you are trying to play zombies. I don't know if there are any other really good zombies in the set, but Diregraph Ghoul is very good. 1 mana 2/2 enters tapped. We'll have to see if zombies become a thing in the future with future sets. Self-Reflection is not that exciting. Twin Blade Blessing, Flash, give a creature double strike. It's all right. Youthful Valkyrie. This is one I am excited about. It's one of the best 2-drop angels ever printed, in my opinion. So this card will definitely see play in Angels. Excited to have this back. Micromancer. It's all right. More of a limited card. Exsanguinate is very good. Being able to play Golgari like that, the Golgari combo deck that plays like the Vampire and Enduring Tenacity and all that stuff, where you're draining your opponent and gaining. This card's going to be great in a deck like that. You play it in Golgari with a little bit of ramp, you can potentially just drain your opponent out really quickly with a couple of these. I like the card a lot. Goblin Negotiation is another interesting one because you can just deal a bunch of damage to something and make a bunch of 1/1s. Pretty cool. Snake's Unveil coming back, a Braid coming back. We like those cards. Divine Resilience. Target creature you control gains an indestructible till end of turn if it was kicked instead any number. That's actually a pretty sweet one. Just a 1 mana save a creature, and then if you have enough mana, you can save a lot of creatures. That's pretty cool. Arbiter of Woe. Meh. Here's the other elf. 4 mana, 3/4 with reach. Other elves you control get +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. That's not busted or anything, right? Like, we're just getting so... Because you're already going to have... We have a 2 mana elf lord, 2 3-mana elf lords, and a 4-mana elf lord. So, like, you're just going to... Like, your opponent doesn't have board wipes on turn 3 and 4. They're just going to be way behind. Like, oh my goodness. An offer you can't refuse is really cool. I can't... Do we have any 0-mana artifacts in standard right now? Because this was a combo enabler, letting you like do stuff way earlier than you should for a little while in standard, so we'll have to see. I like Seeker's Folly. This has got to be one of the best versions of this effect. You know, we get a lot of 3 mana target opponent discards 2 cards, but being able to also, like, when you don't need that effect, give your opponent's creatures -1/-1 could be pretty good. So this might actually see play in the discard decks, just because it could potentially be helpful as like a mini board wipe. Wildwood Scourge is another pretty interesting one. In the counters decks, Heartfire Immolator is just another really obnoxious way to blow up your opponent's face for 1 mana after you pump this thing into oblivion. Let's see. Hey, Overrun's back in standard. That brings back some memories. Bulk Up's pretty cool with Tramplers. Double target creature power till end of turn, you know? Like, it's going to be really annoying with mono red prowess, though. Like, that's not going to be fun. Angel of Finality is pretty sweet as a sideboard card for the Angels decks. Being able to exile player's graveyard, we like that. Savannah Lions, really good 1-drop for the cat decks. I'm telling you, cats are going to be good. Don't believe me? Keep your eyes out. I'm going to make it good. We're going to make cats good. Inspiration from Beyond. Mill 3 cards and return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. This is actually pretty sweet. This is going to help the mill strategies a lot. The fact that it has flashback and you can do it again later in the game is pretty sweet. Oh, so we do kind of have Blood Artist, sort of, with this card. So this could also make the sacrifice decks do really well. Fire Spitter Whelp, we get a 3 mana 2/2 dragon. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature does 1 damage to each opponent. So we get some more of these effects in standard, which are always fun. This Nessian Hornbeetle is actually a really sweet card for the mono green stompy lists, because this will pretty easily grow on turn 3 because there's a ton of 3 mana 4/4 or 4 power creatures in standard right now. So this will definitely be able to just be a 3/3 like 90% of the time. Good old Sarah Angel coming back to standard. Not going to see play, but it's really cool to see it in standard again. Yeah, this is a really sweet set so far. Ajani's Primate, amazing card to have back in standard. Hidetsugu's Second Right is... I'm going to build a deck where I try to kill people with this card. I actually have a historic deck playing Torgar, because Torgar sets a player's life total to half their starting life total. So it's like when it comes into play, it sets their life total to 10, and then you can just hit them with the Second Right. It's much harder to do in standard because we don't have anything like that, but you're gonna see a video of me trying to kill people with this card. It's gonna be great. Blanchwood Armor, I love this card. I think it's a fantastic mono green card. You got enough tramplers. This is just a really sweet buff aura. So Let's see. Bake into a pie. Ambush wolf. Ambush wolf's pretty sweet. Getting banishing light back. Aegis turtle's really cool. You get a 1 mana 0/5. That'll make my dreams of the turtle elk crocodile come true, maybe. Burglar rat. When this creature enters each point, we got enough of those effects. Burst lightning's pretty sweet. More burn. So, yay, burn. Apothecary Stomper is draft chaff. We're getting Bushwhack back permanently. Healer's Hawk's actually not terrible. Eaten Alive, staying in standard. Fanatical Firebrand is a really good goblin. This is also going to help goblins do well. Dwyann's elite and absurd. I cannot believe some of the elf reprints we're getting. Like, this is such a good card. Mocking Sprite, also very good. Goblin Surprise. We have so many ways to make goblin tokens. This is actually pretty sweet. Instant speed, create 2 1/1 goblins, or give everything +2/+0. I actually like that card a lot. I know somewhere in here we're getting Unsummon back, which is sweet. Here's a little sneaky one for you. Heir Apparent. Whenever this creature enters, create a number of 1/1 rabbit creature tokens equal to the number of other creatures you control named Heir Apparent. A deck can have any number of cards named Heir Apparent. I'm going to build a deck with just this card and like 12 lords that can name rabbit. That's going to be great. Oh, man. All right. We're getting Pilfer back. Cathar Commando staying around. Giant Growth, Tolarian Terror staying around. Prideful Parent's not terrible. It's not like amazing. Llanowar Elves. This, I think I got more excited about this common the day they spoiled it way back like 2 months ago than I have about anything else. Like, I'm just so happy to finally have a 1 mana creature that adds mana with no drawbacks or special requirements. We haven't had a 1 mana ramp creature in such a long time. All the things we have right now require, you know, like there's a 1 mana elf, but it's like you got to tap an artifact or a creature to add the mana. Or I think it's the only one. I think it's the only 1 mana card that adds mana in standard right now. So it's so great to finally be able to play 3 drops on turn 2 and get our really good ramp going. Green ramp is going to be amazing again, I'm telling you. And let's see. Felidar Savior is kind of neat. Whenever this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each of the 2 other target creatures you control and has lifelink. I play this in a deck that has like some sweet counter addition stuff going on, and you got a pretty sweet card here. All right, moving on to the fun multicolor stuff, and boy do we have some stuff in here. Like, man. All right, we got Progenitus for one. Talk about a reanimation target, or a the 4 mana Wrath. It's just Day of Judgment. Day of Judgment's the only one, but it's literally just 2 and 2 white, destroy all creatures. Like, easy peasy. This has got to be the most fun smuggler surprise target in the whole world. Just, what do you do when your opponent spends 6 mana and flashes this in? Like, it's just, yes, there are other really good targets, but this is just it's got to be the most fun one because they literally can't interact with it, like, without edict effects or board wipes. So I love this card. Progenitus is just one of those cards. It's just really iconic, and that was really the goal of this set for them. Was they wanted a set, like, I remember when they were talking about why they decided to make this set, and you know what their goal was to draw new players in, and they said, you know, what would a Magic the Gathering themed set be? Like, what if the theme was just Magic the Gathering? How do we make a set that feels like the essence of what this game is? And Progenitus is just such an, like, just a ridiculous 10 mana, 2 of each color, 10/10 pro everything. Rah! Like, it's like the ultimate thing, you know? Like, other than Emrakul, but you know they're never going to put that back in standard. Muldrotha the Gravetide. This has got to be... It's not going to be good, but I love this card. This card will always have a special place in my heart. I played this card in Sultai Reanimator years and years and years ago. And it's a lot of value if it can stick around for a turn. Just being able to get a land out of your yard each turn, cast permanent spells of each type, you get artifact, enchantment, planeswalker, creature, whatever, is really sweet. And sometimes you can just go nuts with this card, and I love it. Niv Mizzet Visionary. It took me a minute. I couldn't remember if this was a reprint or not for a second, but it's not a reprint. It's a 6 mana 5/5 flying. You have no maximum hand size, and whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. I don't think it's incredible, but it's fun, and there will be some decks that play this and have a good time, and I'm excited for people to do that. Zimone, Paradox Sculptor. Now, I really like this card a lot, actually. 4 mana, 1/4. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. Then you can pay a blue and a green to double the number of each kind of counter on up to 2 target creatures and or artifacts you control. Now, the artifact part's really sweet because there are some artifact cards in this set that have some pretty sweet effects for the counters that are on them. So I like her a lot. She comes in, she provides value right away as long as she doesn't get removed before the effect triggers. If you play her in some kind of Bant deck, Delny will let her trigger twice, which is pretty cool. I'll definitely be trying her out in Joda Humans, probably. So I like that a lot. So we'll see. Alonda, Saint of Dusk, 4 mana, 4/4, lifelink, hexproof from instance. That's got to be one of the best hexproofs you can get. Since most removal is instance in most cases, as long as your life total is greater than your starting life total, she gets +1/+1 and has menace. So she's a 5/5 with menace. As long as your life, she gets an additional +5/+5 if your life total is at least 10 or greater. So life gain decks will like this card a lot. I think she's really sweet. I don't think she's like, wow, incredible, but she's going to be a fun card. And Vampires is already really close to being good again because they're getting quite a few awesome cards in this set. Lathril, Blade of the Elves. 4 mana, 2/3 with menace. And whenever she deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green elf creature tokens. And then you can tap 10 untapped elves you control to dome your opponent for 10 and gain 10 life. She's really, really interesting. I don't think she's great, but that is a very strong ability there, and elves are going to be able to make lots of elf tokens, so don't worry about that. All right. Alesha, who laughs at fate. 3 mana in Rakdos colors for a 2/2 with first strike. Whenever she attacks, Alesha attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Raid, at the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, return target creature with mana value less than or equal to her power from the graveyard to the battlefield. Sorry, Alesha's power to the graveyard to the battlefield. I like this card a lot. I think it's a really fun aggro Rakdos sacrifice kind of strategy where you can sacrifice something, then get it back and sacrifice it again. I think Alesha is going to be an awesome card and definitely going to see some play. Koma's back as Koma World Eater. Same mana cost. 7 mana for 3 green, green, blue, blue. You get an 8/12. Holy mackerel. 8/12. Can't be countered. Trample. Ward 4. What? This card is bonkers. And then when it deals combat damage to a player, you get 4 3/3 serpent creatures named Koma's Coil. This is nuts. This is such a great ramp finisher. Like, Simic always gets something busted, and like, this card's so hard to deal with. It can't be countered, and it has Ward 4. Like, goodness gracious. And it's in a color combination where you can run cheap counter spells. So your opponent's like, I'm gonna remove it. Okay, pay Ward 4. All right, cool. I wasted my entire turn trying to go for the throat this thing. Cool, negate. It's ridiculous. This card's so awesome. I love it. Kaikar, Zephyr Awakener. 4 mana, 3/4 flyer. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose one. Exile target creature you control and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Or create a 1/1 spirit creature with flying. I like this card a lot. There is actually, I think it's in... It's either in the main set or the starter set. I'm not sure. But we get a 3 mana creature that gives all creatures with flying +1/+1. So I think there's going to be some kind of sweet bird deck now. Like, there's enough support for it between this set and Bloomburrow that birds might be a thing. And this is really cool because if you have like some cheap, you know, interaction and things like that, you could actually save some stuff from board wipes, because you can't save Kaikar from the board wipe, unfortunately, but you know, if you have some 1 mana instants or 2 mana instants that like either blink or draw cards or something, you can blink some of your more important creatures and save them when your opponent goes to cast a board wipe, which is pretty sweet. I like this card a lot. I don't know if it's going to see play, but it's a very interesting card and I like the play pattern. 1,000-Year Storm. This is definitely going to be an Izzet control, like burn something kind of finisher. This card's awesome. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each other instant or sorcery you've cast before it's turn. You may choose new targets for the copy. So it just gets worse and worse every time you cast a spell. So really cool card. Very fun build around. Definitely going to see someone playing this card. And the last couple of rares in the multicolor here, we have Asher Animist. That's a 4 mana 4/4 trample. When it attacks another target creature you control, gains trample and gets +X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. It's not incredible, but I mean, if it lives, you get to give something else at minimum +4/+4 in trample when it attacks, which is pretty sweet. So, Swiftblade Vindicator. 2 mana, 1/1 with double strike, vigilance, and trample. This card is going to be in a Boros Auras list 100%. Like, this card is really, really strong in some kind of Auras list. So watch out for this one. Consuming Aberration, I think, is an interesting card, but I don't think it's going to be... I don't think it's going to be enough to make Mill really strong. Because you have to, it has to live for a turn, and it has to, you have to be able to cast spells after you play it. So it's a really cool card, but it's probably just going to be really good and limited. Anthem of Champions, 2 mana, creatures you control get +1/+1. This is going to be great in tokens. Any kind of tokens list, any kind of weenies list, this is going to be awesome. So Ruby Daring Tracker, we're getting her in standard for 5 years. I like her a lot. It's a mana dork that can be an attacker later in the game. Nothing too crazy to say about that. We're getting Tatyova Bethnic Druid. Very overcosted for the stats, but her landfall is very good. Gain a life, draw a card. She may see play in some kind of like lands list. We'll have to see. Balmor Battle Mage Captain. We're going to keep Balmor in standard. I love Balmor. I built a Jeskai Birds list with him not that long ago. I think he's awesome, and I'm really happy he's going to be sticking around. Perforating Artist. We have a 3 mana 3/2 Death Touch with Raid at the beginning of your end step. If you attack this turn, each opponent loses 3 life unless they sacrifice an all-land permanent or discard a card. Nothing too crazy here. Wardens of the Cycle. Beginning of your end step, if creature dies this turn, you gain 2 life, or you draw a card and lose life. Not terrible. Good Fortune Unicorn. Don't think that's going to see play. I don't think that's going to see play either. Heroic Reinforcements looks really good. Create 2 1/1 soldiers, and then until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 gain haste. This could be decent. Here's the creature I was talking about. Empyrean Eagle. Other creatures you control flying get +1/+1. So... and it's a bird, so very cool. Fiendish Panda, we get a Bear Demon, 4 mana 3/2. Whenever you gain life, put a counter on this creature. When it dies, return another target non-bear creature with mana value less than or equal to this creature's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. This might actually see some play in a like a sacrifice list or something, or even just as what it is. Like, if you can gain enough life to make the creature good, you can be reanimating pretty sweet stuff from your graveyard. So, on to the artifacts. We have Sire of 7 Deaths. I like this card. It's 7 mana, 7/7, first strike, vigilance, menace, trample, reach, lifelink, ward, pay 7 life. It's just a really solid keyword soup card. It's going to be really good in limited, and it's going to be okay in ramp lists. Banner of Kinship. This is an interesting one. This reminds me very much of Coat of Arms. That's what I'm thinking of. It is not Coat of Arms, but it's pretty close. As this artifact enters, choose a creature type. It enters with a fellowship counter on it for each creature you control of the chosen type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each fellowship counter on this artifact. So Coat of Arms just says creatures you control get +X for each creature that shares a creature type with them. So it fluctuates. This will stay regardless of how many creatures you have. So it's kind of better and worse. It's better in the sense that if you have a decent amount of these creatures on the battlefield when you cast this, you're going to be getting a huge permanent buff to every single subsequent creature you play, even if your opponent deals with what's on the board. Whereas Coat of Arms, you know, if you've only got one creature, you're not getting huge buff. So I don't know. I like this card a lot, and I think that there are certain typo decks that will see a ton of value from a card like this as a top-end game winner. This is basically a colorless Joda for every other kind of creature type. Because Joda the Unifier has always been one of my favorite cards, and it does the same thing. It gives creatures you control +X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. So if you play all legendary creatures, it's basically Coat of Arms for legendary creatures. This does the same thing, and it's not a creature, so it's harder to interact with, which means it will be more consistent and it will stay on the battlefield and deal more damage. So it will absolutely see play 100%. I don't know if it'll be tier 1, but there will be this is a typo deck's dream top end card. So look out for this card. It's going to be good. Leyline Axe. It's a 4 mana equipment that starts on the battlefield if you open your hand with it. I don't know how good that is. It gives something +1/+1, double strike and trample, which is pretty sweet, but it still has an equip cost of 3. So I really don't know how good this is. Like, maybe there's something that cares about you know, you being able to sacrifice artifacts or have artifacts on the battlefield early or something like that, where getting this onto the battlefield at the beginning of the game is helpful. Or, you know, a way to reduce... There are a few ways to reduce equip costs in standard right now, so I don't know. I don't see this card being crazy. Scrawling Trawler, 3 mana, 3/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. So at least you get to draw a card when your opponent gets to draw a card, but whenever an opponent draws a card, that player loses 1 life. So this is like a little mini Shieldred. You could play like Rakdos, Razorkin, Needlehead into Shieldred and just drain your opponent into oblivion whenever they... It would go on Kemba. So I guess that works. Yeah, that works. You're right, Blake. That's actually pretty good. Unfortunately, not having haste kind of sucks, but that's not terrible. Being able to just have a +1/+1 double strike and trample on Kemba right away. Pretty cool. This card's interesting, though. I don't know if it's going to see play, but I like it. And there's a lot of ways to punish your opponent for drawing cards. So I think it'll be cool. I cannot believe we are getting Solemn Simulacrum back in Standard. The best piece of 4 mana ramp you will ever see. It is a 4 mana 2/2. When it enters, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then whenever it dies, you draw a card. This card's great. You play it on turn 3 or 4 or whenever you're... I mean, it's really good with 2 mana ramp. So you play a 2 mana ramp, turn 3, you play this, you get... So now you're at 5 lands, and then your opponent really doesn't want to attack into this or even remove it because it draws you a card. It's just the best 4 mana ramp, and it goes in any color deck. It doesn't have to be green. So, really sweet. We get Meteor Golem, which is interesting if we can double up on those triggers, things like that. You can just destroy some stuff, but other than that, it's not a very good card. Swiftfoot Boots. I'm excited to have Swiftfoot Boots in Standard. I think that's a really good equipment. Being able to give something haste and hexproof. Sorry for the allergies. It is a significantly better upgrade to Lava Spike boots. So excited to have that standard. And other than that, the rest of the stuff is pretty meh. We are getting a new manland in Soulstone Sanctuary, so this will be great for any monocolored. This set's ridiculous. Like, I haven't even gotten to the crazy part. The set itself is really good, but there's so many absurd reprints in the starter kit. Now, I don't know how it's going to affect Arena. Again, I haven't seen any literature about how they're planning on incorporating the starter collection cards on Arena. I'm really hoping they just make it like a package where you can purchase them similarly to how you can do it in paper. But there's some absurd cards in the starter collection, which we'll get to in a minute. Soulstone Sanctuary, 4 mana, 3/3 with Vigilance. It's a land that you can pay 4 mana to make it a 3/3 with Vigilance, and it's all creature types. So it goes in any creature type deck. Another reason that this Banner of Kinship will be ridiculous, because as long as you can afford to run a couple of these in your deck, this will be a massive creature for 4 mana. So this is actually a really solid manland. I'm really happy we're getting Secluded Courtyard back. I was really sad that we lost that from Neon Dynasty. It made me very sad because my Joda Humans deck got significantly worse because we were missing 4 5-color lands. So expect to see more Joda Humans. But it's just great for any creature type deck. Secluded Courtyard is an awesome card, and I'm excited to see it coming back standard for 5 whole years. We get the life gain lands. Hooray, life gain lands. And these are some pretty sick full art lands. I actually like these a lot. Pretty adorable tokens. Look at that cat. Look at this Scion of the Deep Octopus. Pretty cool tokens here. Yeah, all right. So Foundation Jumpstart. I'm not going to go over Jumpstart because it's not standard legal, and we're talking about standard stuff. There's some pretty sweet stuff in here for historic players. So if you want to go to mythicspoiler.com and take a look at these, there are some pretty awesome stuff for non-standard players in here. It will be on Arena, but I'm not going to go over that stuff in this particular live stream. Special guests, I'll talk about them because they're going to be in the packs. These are non-standard, but some of these are really sweet. Paradise Druid is really awesome. Goblin Bushwhack being on standard, being on Arena is really awesome. Akroma's Memorial, fantastic card. Condemn is really nice. These are some really good special guests, just all in all. We get another 5 mana take an extra turn that doesn't get exiled. Some really awesome special guests. These will not be standard legal, but they will be legal in historic and timeless. So just gonna quickly take a quick look at this beautiful artwork from these showcase cards. They did a really good job on these. They look really awesome. I love this Tiny Bones Bauble Burglar. He's just like, yes, bubbles. I love how they have Liliana Dreadhorde General with the veil on. I think that's really cool. Some really sweet artwork. Really sweet artwork. Look at this Gata artwork. Look at this Genesis Wave artwork. Like, all right, I'll stop fanboy. Okay, well, the Japanese artwork. Look at this doubling season. Look at the Llanowar Elf. Like, look at these cards. Ah, these ones are standard legal. They're beautiful. This is probably one of the few sets I actually spend money on the cosmetics. These are all just the full arts and all that fun stuff. All right, starter collection. This is not all of them. I'm actually going to have to go to another page to show you some of the other stuff because not everything is included here. Actually, hold on one second. Pardon me for just a moment. I appreciate your patience. I gotta pull this up over here. You know what? I'm gonna go over it from here. This is less pretty to look at, but I don't want to go through because like this looks nicer to show you guys, but it's missing a lot of cards. So for some reason, Mythic Spoiler has not updated this list. It's only got I mean, it's pretty close, but it's missing a few things. We'll go over this, and if there's any, I've looked at everything, so if there's anything particular I'm missing that I really want you guys to know about, I'll look at the other page. So we'll start here. Lyra Dawnbringer. I love Lyra Dawnbringer. Fantastic finisher for Angels. Gives your Angels +1/+1 in lifelink. She has first strike and lifelink, so she's a fantastic blocker. She's just really good. Excited to see her back in Standard. These cards will not be in the booster packs. These will not be in the booster packs that you buy on Arena. So if you're wanting these cards, I don't know how they're going to implement them. I don't. I Googled it a million times. If you have found information, please link it in the comments so I can point it out to anyone who's watching this. But I have not seen how they're planning on implementing these cards on Arena yet. But they have to, because I know for a fact you'll be able to use wild cards. My hope is that they'll actually have a starter collection on Arena to buy, because it's literally, the starter collection is 3 booster packs, the cards that come in this thing, right, and a bunch of like other kind of nonsensical stuff, like you get the deck building guide and a spin down counter or whatever, and it's $50. So I don't see why they couldn't just say, hey, spend $50, get all these cards on Arena. Like, that would be reasonable. You know what I mean? It's a lot of cards. It's a lot of cards. And yeah, I don't have enough mythics though. I would be sad if I have to spend wild cards to get these cards, and I can't just spend like 20 or $30 on gems to get these cards, because I'm running low on mythics myself. So if I have to, I will, but I'm hoping that they'll have some kind of anthology where you can just buy the cards. And then that way people who want to craft them can, and people who have the money to spend on it can just buy them. And, you know, for a content creator like myself, it would be much more beneficial to just be able to get all the cards at once through some kind of paid package of some kind, so that I can just craft decks and have fun. But yeah, so Lyra Dawnbringer, awesome. Sphinx of the Final Word, can't be countered. 5/5 flying hexproof. Instants and sorceries you control can't be countered. It's a little expensive, but it's a fun card. Massacre Worm is one of my favorite cards. I will play this card in every black deck that can support it, that is not control. Even if it is control, maybe, because it's a really good control card. But I'm really excited to have this back in Standard. It's just such a great card. -2, -2, and then they lose life for each creature they control that dies. So yeah, I think so too. I'm really hoping that they have to have some kind of package. Like, it just doesn't make sense to not do it that way, because this is like 200 cards. Like, there's 361 cards in the collection, but I think there's like 200 and something unique cards, because it comes, like, if you look here, it's 387 regular cards, 90 basic lands, 40 tokens, 3 packs, a booklet, reference card, storage box, and a life counter. So 387 regular cards. But if you look here, there's 2 Ajani's Primate, there's 4 Hinterland Sanctifier, 2 Stasis Snare. But mostly it's 1-ofs, and then a couple 2-ofs, and a couple 4-ofs. So there's still like 200 unique cards. They will not be in the boosters when you draft. No, they will not be in the boosters. Which is unfortunate, but this is the most cards we've been given for Standard in history. We've never been given this many new cards in Standard ever. And a lot of it's rares and mythics. There's a lot of rares and mythics. Like, this is basically its own little mini set. So yeah, no, you're not going to have this stuff in draft. Dragon Master Outcast, 1 mana, 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 6 or more lands, you get a 5/5. Pretty sweet. Vizier of the Menagerie. I love this card. 4 mana, 3/4. You can look at the top card of your library, and you can cast creature spells from the top of your library, and you can spend mana of any type to cast creature spells. So really sweet. Just way to get a little bit of extra card advantage and mana fixing for creature decks. Angelic Destiny. It's crazy to me that this card might not be good enough to see play in Standard, because this card was nuts when it was printed back in the day. I want to say this was printed in Avacyn Restored originally. It's a 4-mana aura that gives a creature +4/+4 flying first strike and is an angel in addition to its type. And when enchanted creature dies, you get the enchantment back. Like, what? If they don't kill the creature before this gets attached to it, that's bonkers. Finale Revelation. X blue, draw X cards. If X is 10 or more, instead, shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, and untap up to 5 lands. And you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Exile Finale Revelation. Really great for control decks that just literally have like no win condition. This basically resets the game for them. Draws them a crap ton of cards. It's awesome. So control, getting a lot of really awesome stuff. Demonic Pact. I'm excited about this because further down the list, you're going to see that we're getting Harmless Offering back. So that'll give us a couple of ways to give our opponent control of permanents we control in Standard. And you'll be able to force the opponent to lose the game. Oh, you have no idea. I'm so excited about this set. I'm so excited about this set. I'm going to have a field day for sure. I'm excited almost more for the cards in this set than I am in the main set. But so we are going to have Demonic Pact. You're going to lose a game to somebody giving you a Demonic Pact with only one mode left. So good luck with that. Lathis Dragon Queen, one of my favorite dragons ever printed. Whenever you cast a non-token, or whenever another non-token dragon enters, you get a 5/5. It's definitely a Timmy Winmore card. This is not the card you need to be playing in your dragon decks, but I'll be playing it anyway because I just love it. Primeval Bounty. It's a really good ramp finisher kind of card because you play this, and if your opponent can't deal with it, it just provides value every turn. You gain life every time you play a land. You get free beasties. You get counters on stuff whenever you cast non-creature spells. It's pretty sweet. Linden, the Steadfast Queen. An awesome card, a 3-mana 3/3 with vigilance, and whenever a white creature you control attacks, you gain a life. So you can gain a lot of life with this in a mono white humans or mono white soldiers or something like that. There's lots of different creature types that work pretty well with this. She's a pretty sweet card. Nothing crazy, but it's a very solid card and it'll help against all those aggro decks. Arcanus the Omnipotent. 3 and 3 blue for a 3/4. You can tap it to draw 3 cards, pay 4 mana to return it to its owner's hand. This is not a crazy good card, but very nostalgic for any of you older players out there. Meogen of Night's Reach, kind of the same thing. It's an 8-mana 5/2. It enters with a divinity counter on it if you cast it from your hand, and it has indestructible as long as it has a divinity counter on it. And you can remove a divinity counter to make your opponent discard their hand. So, yeah, Arcanus was badass back in the day. It's sad. This was really good back then. It's, like, horrible now. This card's not going to see play. Like, maybe somebody plays this as just as a meme. I'm really not excited to see Ball Lightning. We have enough problems with red, and having 4 Ball Lightnings in your deck, it's a 6/1 for 3 mana with haste. It's just a really, like, just an obnoxious card. It's going to provide a lot of just additional reach for those kinds of decks. It's a sick top deck, you know, like, it's really good. Sirach the Huntcaller. This is not my favorite Sirach, but it's a pretty good one. At the beginning of your combat, if the creatures you control have total power 8 or greater, target creature you control gains haste until end of turn. This is really easy to turn on. All you have to do is have 3 power on the field other than Sirach, and he gets haste. So he's basically a 4-mana 5/4 haste. So he's pretty sweet. Zatalpa, Primal Dawn. No, you're not going to see this card getting cast. No, you're not going to see this card getting reanimated. If they ever bring Soulflayer back, you will see this card getting played by Soulflayer. There is a 3-mana 2/2 called Urborg Scavengers that will like this card too. So there may possibly be an Urborg Scavengers deck that wants to see this in the graveyard and exile it and get a whole bunch of keyword soup. So this plus the Eldrazi, like, will give that card some serious keywords. So Dictate of Crufix, I'm actually pretty excited to see this back in Standard. I actually really liked this when it was in Standard originally, back in original Theros. Was it no, it wasn't original Theros. It was the second Theros. It was the second set in the Theros block. It is a 3-mana flash Howling Mine. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. So both of you get to draw lots of extra cards, but most of the time you get to take more advantage of it than they do, because you build your deck that way. Like, you play Shieldreds, so your opponent loses life and you're gaining life. Fun things like that. Desecration Demon, I love this card. It's definitely, in my opinion, it's tough to say whether this is better than the 4-mana demon we have now, where when it loses all its counters, you lose the game. But they have to sacrifice creatures to stop this from attacking you, and that's a really solid threat. And a lot of times, if they just can't remove it, like if you play this against like any kind of creature deck, it's just hard for them to get, like, they're just sacrificing something every turn, and eventually you have like this just monstrous demon and they run out of stuff, because you're also playing removal spells and things like that. So eventually they run out of stuff to sacrifice and you get to smack them in the face. Gratuitous Violence, we get a 5-mana enchantment that says if a creature you control deal damage to a permanent or player, deals double that damage instead. So now we have 2 5-mana ways to double up combat damage from our creatures, so pretty sweet. Hero's Bane, 5-mana Hydra. It enters with 4 counters on it, and you can pay 4 mana to put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is its power. So basically, double it up. Charming Prince, I am very excited to have this card back in Standard. This is a super awesome card to have alongside ETB effects, and just like if you want to play some Blink style deck, this is really good. It's also great because if you have to play it on turn 2 and you don't have anything to blink, Scrying 2 for a 2-mana 2/2 that scries 2 is really good, and the gaining 3 life can be awesome against like the aggressive red decks and stuff like that. He's gonna see play. Harbinger of Tides, 2 blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. You can cast it as though it had flash if you pay 2 more to cast it, and when it enters you can return a tapped creature to an opponent controls to its owner's hand. It's really solid if you just want to get something they attacked with last turn out of the way. You play, they play a 1-drop, attack with it, and if you went first, you play this for 2 mana, bounce their thing back. But it's nice that you can instant speed bounce something if you have 4 mana to cast it. Dread Summons. This is an interesting one. Each player mills X card. For each creature card put into a graveyard this way, you create a 2/2 black zombie. It's pretty fun. Pretty fun way to take advantage of ramp. Harmless Offering. This is going to give people things that make them lose the game. You can play this with Solkanar. You can play this with Demonic Pact. There are several cards you can hand over to your opponent and force them to lose the game. Well, Solkanar doesn't make them lose the game, but what you can do is you can choose all the effects on Solkanar and then give it to them, so that when they get the trigger, they have to give it back to you. Predator Ooze. It's indestructible. It's a 3-mana 1/1. Whenever this creature attacks, you get a counter on it. Whenever a creature dealt damage by this creature dies, you get a counter on it. Pretty sweet. Felidar Retreat. I love this card. It's awesome. Landfall. Create a 2/2 cat. Or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain vigilance till end of turn. It's an awesome card. It's a great way to take advantage of, it's a really solid way to make sure if you're playing some kind of creature deck that you don't run out of gas. Like, you draw a land, cool, you get a 2/2. Or maybe you draw a land and you just have a bunch of good creatures on the field. Okay, everything gets pumped. Pretty sweet. Rite of Replication. I have a special place in my heart for this, mostly from playing Commander. I'm gonna make something around it in Standard. It's more of a Commander card, but I will build something with this card in Standard, because making 5 tokens of something for 9 mana is pretty sweet. It's a better rate than Doppelgang, because Doppelgang, to make 5 copies, you would have to pay 17 mana. So, yeah. Rite of Replication, 9 mana, make 5 copies of something, pretty sweet. Colostria Highborn. This is a very sweet vampire. 2 black for a 2/2. Whenever this creature or another vampire you control dies, you can pay a black, and you can drain your opponent for 2. Very solid card, just to get some additional life drain in there. Red Cap Gutter Dweller. We have this in Standard already. It's not a very good card, but meh. Primal Might. Absurd fight spell. Very, very good. Give something +X/+X on a turn, then it fights something you don't control. Awesome card. Fumigate coming back into standard. This is where I see Sunfall potentially falling out of favor a little bit. Because yeah, with Sunfall you exile everything and you get the token, but sometimes the life gain is going to be more important. So I'm interested to see if we see a little shift in people putting Sunfall away for something like Fumigate. Sunfall's still the best board wipe. It really is. But I see people being tempted to try other things because of the benefits that these provide. Being able to gain a bunch of life can be better than getting a token, you know? Even with the exile effect. So, River's Rebuke. Absurd for blue-white control. Blue-white control is going to love this card, being able to just bounce everything to their opponent's hand. Yeah. Simic Ramp, too. Yep. Simic Ramp is going to love this. It's not a fun card to play against. This is going to feel very bad when it gets cast against you, so keep your eyes out for that. Midnight Reaper, 3 mana, 3/2 zombie knight. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, this creature deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. It's an okay card. Stromkirk Noble. I like this card a lot. It's a very good vampire, so if vampires get popular again, this will definitely be one of them. Rampaging Baloths. This is a pretty sweet top end way to rebuild a board. Like if you're just like playing like a nice curvy ramp green deck and your opponent wipes your board, then you play this and follow it up with some landfall, you rebuild your board. It's pretty sweet. Mentor of the Meek. Card's awesome. Just every turn you get some tokens, you pay 1 mana, you draw a card. And it's not limited. You can do it as many times a turn as you want. So this card's going to see a ton of play in white weenie strategies, token strategies, things like that. Is it better than Caretaker's Talent? I don't know. You know what? We have Enduring Innocence. Enduring Innocence might be better than this. Enduring Innocence is double white though, so this can also draw you multiple cards a turn, whereas Enduring Innocence can only draw you 1 card a turn. I don't know. They'll probably see play with each other. But Mentor will definitely see play somewhere. It's a very strong effect. Tempest Djinn, I love this card. It's a 3 mana 0/4, gets +1/+0 for each basic island you control, has flying. It'll go into mono blue nonsense Djinn decks probably. I don't know if it's good enough to replace anything in those decks, but it could. And it's great for new players for sure. Null Priest of Oblivion, I like this card a lot. It's a vampire cleric with lifelink and menace, and if you have 4 extra mana, you can reanimate something. It's a very solid card. Torian Mauler is a changeling. That's pretty cool. And whenever an opponent casts a spell, you can put a counter on it. So it grows. I like it. Wildport Preserver, because we needed more busted elves in the standard. It's a 2 mana 2/2 flash reach, and whenever another non-human creature, i.e. all the rest of your elves, enter, you can pay X. When you do, put X counters on this creature. That's all we needed. More fun, awesome stuff for elves. Elves are going to be good, man. And then Regal Caracal. This is... I won a 2K with Tribal Cats back when this was in Standard and Amonkhet. This card's so good. It just completely swings a game if you can get this down with a board full of cats. And there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of good cats in Standard with this set and previous sets. I'm telling you right now, we are going to see Cat Tribal, even if it's only from me. I'm going to make a Cat Tribal deck, and it's going to be awesome, and it's going to crush everybody, and it's going to be great. So keep your eyes out for that. Voracious Great Shark, I like this card. It's nice in like Simic Ramp because it's a 5/4 that counters a creature or artifact from your opponent, and so it's growing your board and stopping their board from getting bigger. It's pretty sweet. Witchclaw Talisman, it's nice to have this in Standard again because this is a very nice and simple way to make sure you get your combo for something. Usually you're not gonna, you're trying to end the game with this, so in most cases, you'll just play this on turn 2, and then later on in the game, when you need to find your combo piece, you'll pay the 1 mana, go fetch the thing, win the game with your combo, and the downside of this won't really matter. So that's how it works in mono black devotion in historic and things like that. So we got Bolt Bend, which is 4 mana for 4 damage. Or sorry, change the target of a spell or ability with a single target. It costs 3 less if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. That can be pretty sweet to protect your stuff in like a Gruul Stompy kind of list. If your opponent's playing like a mid-range deck as well and they have removal for your creature, you can sometimes pay 1 red mana to just swap it to their creature and blow them out. So, pretty sweet card. Finn the Fangbearer. 2 mana, 1/3 Death Touch. Whenever a creature you control Death Touch deals combat to a damage to a player, they get 2 poison counters. This could be pretty sweet in standard. Then the Fangbearer had like a fringe Death Touch, deck when it was in standard, so we'll have to see. As far as uncommons and stuff go, Deathmark will be a very good sideboard card. 1 mana, just destroy a green or white creature. You're playing against a green-white deck? It's a 1 mana removal spell, unconditional. Another version of a Johnny's Pride Mate in this deck. Gatekeeper of Malakir has got to be, like, if you're playing mono black, this card's just so good. Like, most cards that cost 3 mana and make someone sacrifice a creature force you to also sacrifice a creature. And this is just target player sacrifices a creature. So you pay 3 mana, you get a 2/2, and they have to sack something. So, pretty sweet. Giant Cindermaw staying in standard for a while, a way to keep players from gaining life. Always good. Gutter Snipe being in standard is busted, in my opinion, in burn. So you're going to see Gutter Snipe. Get used to it. Confiscate, having just a legitimate 6 mana gain control of a permanent is pretty sweet, but I don't see it seeing a ton of play. I'm glad that we're going to have the Knights. We've got the Knight of Malice and the White Knight too, that have hexproof from their opposite colors and get +1/+0 as long as the opponent controls their opposite color. I like these cards a lot. I'm excited to have them back in standard just for funsies. Midnight Snack isn't... Oh, sorry. Midnight Snack isn't... What did I just do? Oopsie. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. I clicked the wrong button and ruined everything. Forgive me. You can eviscerate me in the comments and say, come on, Severin, why'd you click the wrong button? What are you, some kind of noob? Alright. Midnight Snack. Let's click the correct buttons here to zoom in. Alright. 3 mana enchantment with raid. If you attacked, create a food token, and then you can sacrifice this enchantment and target opponent loses X life, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. It's a pretty sweet little potential finisher, but it's also really good in snake deck. You want to play Viper, this is a great way to make sure you have lots and lots of free permanents to sacrifice so that you can cast your Vipers. Angel of Vitality, just another unbelievably amazing angel to go in the Angels deck. You gain an additional 1 life, and it gets +2/+2 as long as you have 25 or more life. So Angels, again, gonna be amazing. Imperious Perfect. Again, I can't believe we're getting so many amazing elves. Like, it buffs all your elves. You can pay 1 mana to make 1/1 green elves. It's awesome. Heartfire Immolator, we already saw that in the main set, but it's also going to be in this set. Hidetsugu Second Right, also going to be in the set again. Mold Adder is pretty sweet as a sideboard card in like green decks because it just grows every time they cast stuff, which is pretty sweet. Raiding Flash Freeze, another solid like control sideboard card against like big red-green stompy lists. Arcway Angel, another card that I'm really excited coming back to standard is Maze's End. Now, they don't show it here in Mythic Spoiler, which is one of the reasons I want to go look at the other list after this to make sure there's nothing else exciting that we're missing. But Maze's End is coming back along with all 10 guild gates. Yes, I will be building a Maze's End turbo control deck. Yes, it will be fun. It's particularly good in this standard because we have a ton of ways to recur lands from the graveyard right now that we never had back when Turbo Fog Maze's End was a thing back in the day. So I don't know how good it's going to be, but this will be a great sideboard card in that deck to just gain a bunch of life. Fog Bank is a really nice, just like infinite blocker, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and by this creature, so it can just block anything without trample forever and ever. Hoarding Dragon is kind of sweet because you can basically get an artifact out of your deck if you want, but nothing too crazy. Ordeal of Nylea I actually really like a lot. Whenever it attacks, it's an aura, and then whenever the enchanted creature attacks, you get a counter on it, and then if it has 3 or more counters, you sacrifice the aura. When you sacrifice the aura, you get to fetch 2 lands out of your library, which is pretty sweet. Palaka Worm, it's not that good, but I just love this card because it's Palaka Worm. It just gives me some nostalgic feels. 7 mana, 7/7 trample. You gain 7 life when it enters, and when it dies, you draw a card. So, pretty sweet card. It's gonna be fun in limited. Well, no, this won't be in limited. It'll be fun just to have it on Arena because I like it. Gateway Sneak is an interesting card for the Gates deck, but probably won't be playing that because it's going to be more of a turbo control list. Here's Knight of Grace, the other Knight, hexproof from black, and it gets +1/+0 as long as they control black permanent. Devout Decree is pretty sweet for the sideboard again, for anything red like Rakdos stuff, being able to just exile something. It's pretty sweet. I like Fierce Empath a lot too as an elf because I'm thinking that elves might actually be like Abzan or green-white, because you could use Moonshaker Cavalry to fulfill the role of Craterhoof. And Fierce Empath lets you go fetch that out of your deck, which is pretty sweet. So, I don't know. I might be a little pie in the sky with that one, but I like it. Savannah Lions, we already saw that. Think Twice coming back to standard. Awesome, awesome, awesome thing to have. Gitu Lava Runner also coming back, which will be very good. Stasis Snare, very solid removal spell for enchantment based decks. And Unsummon. Unsummon will be very welcome back in standard. It's such an old card, but we have not had just a 1 mana return a creature to its owner's hand in a long time, and just that extra ability to save a creature of your own makes the card really good. We already see that Into the Flood Maw is a pretty good spell. Now, unlike Into the Flood Maw, this cannot bounce a non-land permanent by just giving your opponent a fish, but I think it's a fair trade-off for the fact that you can actually save something of your own, which is sweet. We're also getting Feed the Swarm back, which is another way for black to deal with enchantments. I'm not 100% sure about how I feel about black having so many ways to deal with enchantments all of a sudden. And this is going to be legal for 5 years. But, I mean, it does have a nice drawback of them losing life equal to the permanent's mana value. So if they're destroying, like, a doubling season or something, they have to take 5 damage to do it. So, Impact Tremors, pretty sweet addition to standard. Goes along with War Leader's Call and making sure that we can, like, make a bunch of tokens and just ping our opponent half to death. I like that a lot. Valorous Stance, another fantastic sideboard card. I love Valorous Stance. Being able to give something indestructible or just destroy something that's big. Moving on to the multicolored stuff, we get some more super sweet stuff. Aurelia is the real angel finisher if you really need it. 6 mana, 3/4 flying, vigilant, haste, and whenever she attacks for the first time each turn, you get an additional combat. So if you weren't winning after playing Lyra Dawnbringer, you'll definitely win after playing this. Even by herself, she still basically has double strike, and she has vigilance too, so like she's a good blocker. Isley Eternal Pilgrim, 2 mana, 2/3 with Death Touch. You can sacrifice another creature, gain life equal to its toughness. I actually think that's a very strong ability. It really makes like sure that like if you're playing a deck that where every card is a threat kind of thing, it kind of forces them to deal with her, because if they're attacking your other creatures with removal, you just I'll sacrifice it and gain 4 life. I'll sacrifice that and gain 6 life, you know, whatever. And then you can pay 3 mana to sacrifice another creature and exile target non-land permanent, but only if you have at least 10 more life than your starting life total, which might not be that difficult with her first ability, so I don't know. Will she see play? I'm not 100% sure, but that's a pretty solid ability. I like it a lot. Helena Elena partners, I could not be happier to have a card back in standard. I love this card. It is one of my favorite ways to give creatures haste. It's just a really solid card. It's great against like the flyer decks and things like that. It makes Bat sad, which makes me happy. And it's great in Jodah Humans because it gives Jodah haste and makes him huge. So I was very sad to lose this card from Jodah Humans when it rotated. So glad to have this back in standard for a long, long time. Ovika Enigma Goliath, 7 mana 6/6 flying, ward 3 and pay 3 life. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create X/1/1 Phyrexian Goblins, where X is the mana value, and they gain haste until end of turn. This card's already in standard. It doesn't see play right now. I don't think it'll see play in the future very often. Prime Speaker Sagana, on the other hand, is a little different. 6 mana for a 1/1, and it enters with X+1/+1 counters on it, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. When she enters, you draw cards equal to her power. Its power, sorry. Anyway, this card saw play when it was in standard. It wasn't like all over the place, but if you have any other creature on the battlefield, like a 3 power creature, it's still a 6 mana 4/4, draw 4 cards. It's very strong. So as long as you can keep something on the board, she's good. So I like her a lot. Consuming Aberration, we already saw that in the main set. Don't see that seeing a ton of play. Drogskull Reaver, maybe Reanimator. Like it's not the best reanimation target at all, but I mean, it's a flying double strike lifelink, and it draws you 2 cards whenever it deals, because even if they block it, it's gonna probably deal damage twice, so you'll gain 6 life and draw 2 cards. I don't know if this will see play. It's an awesome card, but I don't see it seeing play. Immerstrom Predator, on the other hand, this card's awesome. So 4 mana 3/3, whenever it becomes tapped, you get to exile a card from a graveyard and put a counter on it. Sacrifice another creature. This creature gains indestructible and tap it. So this is going to see play. The card was very good in standard when it was in standard originally. It's right up Rakdos Sacrifice's alley. It gives you a free sacrifice outlet, which is something that, you know, is very valuable in a deck that cares about sacrificing things. It's graveyard hate. It grows every time you sacrifice something and exile a card. It's awesome. This card's great. It'll definitely see play. Maelstrom Pulse, I'm really excited to have this back in standard. Destroy a non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name type. So whether it's blowing up a whole bunch of tokens your opponent created, or just multiple copies of Leyline Binding or something, this card is going to make domain players sad when they have multiple copies of Leyline on the field and you just Maelstrom Pulse their Leyline and get all your stuff back. So love Maelstrom Pulse. Great card. Solid removal. Garna, Bloodfist of Kell, nothing to write home about. Boros Charm, one of the best burn spells ever printed. 2 mana, deal 4, or give all your stuff indestructible on a turn, or give something double strikes on a turn. This is one of the best charms ever printed. It's going to be annoying in standard. People are going to hate it. Tough cookies. We're going to have to deal with it. Cloudblazer. I love this in Blink decks. I play this in Historic. In my Blink decks, there's plenty of good Blink spells in Standard right now. So being able to gain 2 life and draw 2 cards, it's basically Muldrifter, but a little tiny bit better. And also, I guess, a little worse because you can't evoke it. But still, solid card. It might see a little bit of play. We'll have to see. Deadly Brew. 2 mana, it's a green and black. Each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker of their choice. If you sacrifice a permanent this way, you get to return another permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So you can't return what you sacrificed, but you can return something else. So it could be sweet, like a Golgari Roots deck, because like, oh, I milled my roots. Now I can sacrifice a creature and get my roots back. Pretty sweet. Enigma Drake, another pretty sweet addition to go alongside Jin. This card did see play at least a little bit when it was in standard, and it's a very solid card. So Mortify, the fact that it can hit a creature or enchantment's pretty sweet, but I think we have better removal than this. Savage Ventmaw, I wouldn't talk about this card if it weren't for the fact that it can enable some pretty sweet combos with the fact that you just get a lot of extra mana when this attacks, and there's ways to take advantage of that. And there's a lot of combat doubling available in Standard right now with like Fear of Missing Out and even Aurelia. If you play like Naya, big stuff, you can just make a ton of mana with this. So pretty sweet card. I like it. Trigon Predator. I don't know if this will see play, but I love just that, you know, it's something else that destroys artifacts and enchantments when it deals combat damage. Unflinching Courage will 100% see play in auras. This card was nonsense when it was in Standard originally. It's a very solid card for an uncommon. It gives a creature +2/+2 a trample and lifelink. And we have ways to reduce the cost of this even. Awesome card. Wiltleaf Liege. I forgot about this elf. This elf also gives your elves +1/+1. And if they happen to be green-white elves, they get +2/+2. So there's only a couple green-white elves in Standard right now, but they are there. You have Rocco and Selvala and a few others. But it's still a 4-mana 4/4 that gives all your green creatures. So if you're playing this in mono green elves, it's still an amazing lord. And then if a spell and an ability your opponent controls causes you to discard this card, you get to put it onto the battlefield. So suck it, mono black control decks. It's basically a better Baloth for elf decks. Like, oh man. Dryad Militant. This card is going to make the instants and sorceries in the graveyard matter decks very sad. If an instant or sorcery card would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. It's also just a solid 1-mana 2/1. So this will be a great sideboard card for decks that want to stop those instants and sorceries matters lists. Teach by Example. 2 hybrid blue-red mana. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can copy it. We've had spells like that in Standard before. It'll be annoying in some kind of combo deck, I'm sure. It shouldn't be too bad though. We're getting Darksteel Colossus back. I don't see this being too crazy, as exile-based removal is very popular now. So it being indestructible is not super relevant. But I love Darksteel Colossus, and I will always love it. So glad to see it in Standard. Pyromancer's Goggles, 5 mana for tap, add a red, and whenever that mana is spent to cast a red instant or sorcery, you copy it. It's a pretty okay 5 mana spell. And we get Gilded Lotus in Standard, which will make ramp decks even more fun. Sorcerer's Spyglass is another nice sideboard card I'm excited to have back in Standard. Soul Guide Lantern, don't really care about this because it's Ghost Vacuum's just way better. And we get the Temples back, so yay, Temples. More tapped cards. So if you don't want to surveil, if you don't want the stuff going in the graveyard, Temples will be better. Especially if you don't care about the dual land types of the surveil lands. So this is an awesome thing to have back in Standard for control and like mid-rangey decks that just want to have like a little bit of extra ability to see what's on top and smooth their draws. So nice to have the option around. Let me take a look at this list really quickly and just see if there's anything that was missing, because I know, for instance, Maze's End is not in the cards I just showed you, and it's definitely going to be here. Looks like we're getting Stasis Snare. I already showed you. Inspiring Overseer I don't think was in there. That's coming back. Mocking Sprite we saw. Into the Royal, I don't think we saw that. That's coming back. I don't think we saw Feybloom Trick either. Instant create 2 1/1 flyers and tap a creature. That's actually pretty good. We're getting Opt back. That wasn't in the cards I just showed you, so Opt is coming back. That's a nice thing to have back. Witness Protection, I didn't see that. We get Witness Protection back. In black, we get Moment of Craving back. Not too crazy, but it's something. Claw, Vengeful Blood Witch. I don't think there's anything here that we missed out on. In red. Why isn't it showing me these things anymore? There we go. No card art for Crackling Cyclops. Crash Through, we didn't see that, but Crash Through is going to be back in standard, so we'll have a 1-mana way to give everything trample until end of turn and draw cards. Pretty sweet. Ravenous Giant. That wasn't there either. That's coming back. Not that it matters. It's a terrible card. Gigantosaurus, we didn't see that, but we'll have 5 mana 10/10 back in standard, so there's that. Let's see. Multicolor. I think everything here we saw perfect. Yeah, we saw that. Wardens of the Cycle, was that? Did we see that? That's not going to show me the card. I don't think there's anything there we're missing. We didn't see Adaptive Automaton. This was one I was actually really excited about. So Adaptive Automaton's coming. There's actually a lot of colorless cards they didn't show. So I'm actually really glad that I came over here. Adaptive Automaton is a fantastic lord for anything. It's just 3 mana, pick a creature, they all get +1/+1. It's colorless, so it can go in any deck. Really awesome. Maze's End obviously is a land-based win condition. I'm excited to have this back in standard. We're also getting Diamond Mare, which is another nice like life gain kind of thing to go along with all the like life gain decks, because you can pick a color and then anytime you cast a spell that color you gain a life. Gate Colossus is another nice gate card. Costs 1 less for each gate you control. Can't be blocked by little creatures, and whenever a gate enters, if it's in your graveyard, you can put it on top of your deck. So nice little like big stupid stompy win condition for the gates deck. Ramos Dragon Engine's another interesting one. It's a 6 mana 4/4. Whenever you cast a spell, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it for each of that spell's colors, and then you can remove 5 +1/+1 counters from Ramos and add 10 mana, 2 of each color, once per turn. Just a really sweet, like fun card. I don't think it's going to be amazing or anything. We're also getting Steel Hellkite, which I think is an interesting reprint. It's a really solid like way to just blow up all of a specific land type, but it's very clunky, so I don't think it'll see play. But I love the card because it has a lot of nostalgia for me. Arcane Signet is not going to be standard legal. This is going to be commander only. Basilisk Collar being in standard is really sweet. Give 1 mana and then equip 2, give a creature Death Touch and Lifelink. There's some pretty fun combos with that. Cultivator's Caravan coming back to standard. Expedition Map. This is actually pretty crazy because you can search for any land with this. So if you're playing like a Typal deck, you can go get 3 Tree City out of your deck and make sure you have that available for your Typal deck. Or if you just have a specific land you really need, like Maze's End, or a specific gate you need, boom, Expedition Map. Or any number of other lands that you just really need. It's any land, not a basic. Very sweet. Feldon's Cane can be interesting if you're playing against a mill deck. It could be a nice mill sideboard card. Gilded Lotus. Hedron Archive coming back to standard. This is another solid ramp card that I'm excited to have back. Maze Mind Tome is going to be incredible for control decks. So Maze Mind Tome coming back to standard, definitely going to be a super solid option for control decks. You will see this card a lot, so keep your eyes out for it. Swiftfoot Boots, and then lands. Just a bunch of guild gates and temples and all that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So wow, okay, we went through a lot of cards. We've been streaming for about 2.5 hours, so I wasn't planning on doing any gameplay tonight. So for those of you who joined me today, I'm incredibly grateful for you spending this time with me. It's really good to get back to streaming. I will be streaming again, probably like I will be streaming on Wednesday, and then I'll probably stream again on like Friday. Just doing some fun limited stuff, playing some Arena Cube. We'll talk more about fun cards that are coming out and stuff that I'm excited about. This is great. This has to be, in my opinion, one of the best things, because this wasn't even supposed to happen. This wasn't like planned, and not as far ahead as like normally a set is planned 2 or 3 years in advance. They actually decided to release this pretty last minute, and the fact that we're getting like almost 500 new cards in standard, almost 500 new cards in standard is insane. Like, this is gonna be such a fun set to try to brew around. There's gonna be so many news, like there's gonna be so many. The standard is gonna be unrecognizable from what it was before this set releases, I'm telling you. And it's gonna be a blast, and I'm gonna be here building you all the jank, all the fun. I love this because I know there is too many decks out there. I'm not gonna have to compete with other content creators to build some of the stuff I want to build. I might have to compete with somebody for cats, but I don't care. I'm building cats, and it's gonna be great. Probably some doubling season super friends. Because these planeswalkers are really good. We've already got a lot of good planeswalkers. You're going to see a dragon deck from me at some point. All kinds of a Genesis wave deck is going to happen. Like, Maze's End is going to be the first control deck I build of the set. That's going to be a blast. So I'm really excited. I'm thankful for all of you who joined me tonight. It was an absolute blast to go through all these cards with you. I'm sorry that I had to do it all at once. I didn't originally intend to kind of do these in smaller chunks, but I just didn't have time. And they spoiled all this really fast. Like they spoiled like 150 cards at MagicCon while I was there, and I just couldn't keep up with it. So thank you for all of those who've been patient with me. Thank you for those of you who have joined me tonight to do this. And I am just so stoked about this set. And I'm stoked to be playing things for you guys, and I hope that I will catch you guys in my live on Wednesday, and we'll have some fun. So with that, I will catch you in the next one, and thank you as always for being a part of my community and making this possible for me to do. Have a good night.